Cookies, alone with the cookies. So good to eat. I can't even do it.
I'm laughing. I can't keep a straight face. So it's not helping.
I don't remember how the song goes.
Tasty cookies.
Cookies, tasty cookies, eaten the moon. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome. You are entering into a strange dimension. A dimension where narratives from across space and time come together. Narratives that could have, might have, or should have been all exist here in one space. This is CineCasters Ultimate Timeline.
Welcome back to CineCasters Ultimate Timeline. This is the show where we watch movies and then pitch them back to one another to hopefully create some kind of story or coherent narrative, or maybe just talk about why the movie works or doesn't work. But story and narrative, I think, is the operative word. I'm cramping. My side is cramping right now because I'm laughing so hard. Story and narrative is the operative word today, as I'm joined by Nate Draper.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. And we just finished watching, literally maybe an hour ago.
Wow.
We just finished watching Cats.
The 2019 Cats, directed by Tom Hooper.
Which,
yeah, I was in disbelief.
Because you were like, oh, I love Tom Hooper. I love Tom Hooper too.
Yeah.
But
I still love Tom Hooper, just not this movie.
So
sorry, Tom.
Tell me about Cats. What did you just watch?
I'm still trying to figure that out. Yeah. So I will say, I think what they were trying to do, I think it was impressive as a experiment. The thing that I thought it worked well was the way the camera work in terms of capturing what was going on, and then the combination of that with CG, and then also just capturing the subtleties in the emotion in the actor's face. I think that actually overall worked pretty well. Animation quality, like the actual mechanics of the lighting and the shading and the fur and all of the CG versus the live action setting elements, how they blended maybe didn't work as well, but the actual like camera work, tracking that with and then the subtleties in the faces of the actors, I actually thought that came across pretty well, and I thought it was an interesting idea. I didn't really get a flow. I didn't really get the story. In fact, I still don't really know what was going on. I have ideas of what was going on, but I can't say I really followed what was happening.
I'm the same way. Like, from scene to scene, from song to song, like I could follow the song, what was happening in the song. It was basically like describing that cat.
Yeah.
But the progression from like each different song was tenuous at best.
Yeah.
Like, there was no real like through line of it all.
No.
And from what I can tell, actually, even the story that they like, the loose one that they put in was actually put in for the movie. It's not even in the stage show.
Okay, see, that's the other thing. I'm not too familiar with the original stage show or the
Neither
T.S. Eliot poems either.
Yeah.
Is it one poem, or is that like a collection of poems?
I think it's a collection of poems
yeah.
by T.S. Eliot. And there's apparently like a separate collection of dogs as well.
Oh, okay,
so
interesting.
Like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's like a weird fever dream. I will say that I do think, like, from a like cinematographic, like the way that it's shot, excluding CG and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The way that it's shot is like, this is pleasant. Like the way you said, the way it follows the action, the way that we see characters' faces, that all works. It all feels good. It all feels natural. I will say, in regards to the CG, in terms of the backgrounds, not in terms of the fursuits, I did mention that I felt like I was having vertigo at one point.
Yeah.
Where I felt like I was, like the characters were floating on top of nothing.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that at one point. Yeah, was that when they're walking across the train tracks?
Yeah, they're doing the whole train section for the train
they
cat.
leave the theater or something.
Yeah,
and then they're on the train
it's weird.
tracks.
And yeah, I was sort of like, my head hurts because I feel like I've gone cross-eyed, like I'm trying to rectify real characters that have been CG'd over with a green screen background that has been animated in.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because some of it, I wasn't sure if some of the backgrounds were like they'd actually photographed it and then they matched the CG on top of that, or if it was also like a separate CG set.
Well, maybe.
Because if it was a separate CG set, you would think they'd blend together a little better. But
that's what I'm saying. Maybe it was photographed, and maybe that's why I was experiencing this kind of like
what my theory is.
like
yeah,
visual dysplasia. I don't have another word for
yeah.
it. Yeah, like this sort of, again, not vertigo, but like, yeah, like this discombobulation.
Yeah, there was
between
something
what I
like
was
with
seeing.
the 3-dimensional geography that just didn't seem to quite line up.
Yeah.
and was jarring.
Yeah.
And I felt that a few times too. Yeah, for me, the part where I definitely went like, "Oh, that's interesting," was just in the specifically the animation on the actors' faces and how believable that was. Like it
a
looked
little uncanny, but yeah, it was believable.
Yeah, in terms of just the movement itself,
Yeah.
it looked like, okay, I can see like this was actually someone they filmed and they've matched to it.
Yeah.
Um,
I will also say, I think it's worth noting that, particularly in Victoria, the main cat we follow,
uh-huh.
her choreography, like her ballet in particular,
Uh-huh.
was really good.
Yeah, there was
choreography in this movie was excellent. But I just wanted to say, like Victoria, that actress, she has a background in ballet. We looked it up on IMDb
Oh, okay.
while we were watching. She has a background in ballet and like a bunch of ballet schools and stuff like that, and like it shows. I was like, damn, there's good choreography in this one.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of creative ideas in terms of the presentation of it. Yeah, it did feel just kind of, in terms of the technical aspect, parts of it just didn't feel like they were quite finished, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a bit uncanny, but this is also the same year that we saw a trailer for Sonic that was pushed back.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? It was pushed back till 2020, but it was supposed to come out in 2019.
I remember.
It was also
now,
the same year we got The Lion King, which a lot of people complained about because the photorealistic CGI detracted from the emotionality in the characters' faces.
Right, yeah, I remember that being, yeah. And I actually thought what they did with Lion King worked. Yeah.
I think it's a neat idea. It's really technically astounding how cool that looks.
No, it's true, yeah.
But I also, I'm not sure that it, to me, warranted a like full shot-for-shot remake of.
I don't think it did. I think it was interesting. I think it was well done for what it was. But did it warrant a remake? Personally, I don't think so.
I've said this before. I really like Beauty and the Beast, the Beauty and the Beast remake, but I don't think it warranted actually existing.
No, I mean, because I think you and I would agree. We'd like to see more like original IPs.
Absolutely,
be put on screen.
Yeah, and I know Disney has this whole thing where they like take classic fairy tales and redo them, and that's a bit of appropriational problematicism behind that.
I think with some of the remakes they've been trying to sort of address some of that.
Well, I mean, it's still appropriation.
Well, that's the thing. It still is.
You're still taking an idea, but like we've seen that with Tangled as Rapunzel, and Frozen was from
Hans Christian
Andersen, which they already did. But I like that they're being like, well, we've never done this before. Like, let's.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, all right, okay. Like, sure. At least you're doing something new.
Right, yeah.
Right? Rather than just being like, hey, remember that one awesome IP from the early 90s / late 80s?
Yeah, exactly.
What if we just redid that? And it's like, do you think I can already just watch the animated one?
Do you think they'll do a live action Frozen someday?
I mean, you can already watch Once Upon a Time.
Oh, right, yeah.
The TV show.
Fair, yeah.
Which the first season is actually pretty good.
I actually haven't seen it. I think you would tell me.
I do. One day I want to do a CineMasters on that.
Oh, okay.
On the first season of Once Upon a Time. But I'll force.
You'll get Justin.
I'll get Justin to do it, or somebody else who has the time, because I know you just don't have the time for that. So those are pretty much all the things that worked for me.
Yeah, same with me.
I do actually think that the CG was like technically astounding. The backgrounds and all that. I bet you this whole thing was filmed on green screens with like green suits on.
That's what I'm expecting. Yeah.
And so like some CG animation company out there, probably in Vancouver,
could be,
but out there in the world, did not get paid nearly enough for the work they had to do for that movie.
Likely the case.
Because it is astounding.
Yeah, and that's why I feel kind of bad bashing it, because it's like, someone put a lot of work into it, and then the world just kind of collectively took a shit on it.
And I bet you people shit on the CG, but I bet you that the choice to make it look that way was not the animators. None of them. It was definitely someone on the higher up on the creative team who was like, "This is the way we want it to look. This is and that was a choice."
Yes.
Let me just say that was a choice.
Yeah. Having human hands and boots and
why are some of them wearing CGI'd shoes?
Converse sneakers.
But they're like CGI'd on.
Yeah.
That was really disconcerting to me. I was like, and then Taylor Swift is wearing. Her character's wearing high heels,
and then there was another character wearing like almost Blundstones. The tap dancing boots almost kind of looked like Blundstones.
But those were real, for sure. Those were real.
Well, they looked much more real than the others. So yeah, I don't know
there's some strange choices in this movie. What about the music?
I think overall the music is okay. I'm not a huge fan of the Cats music, to be honest. There's a few tunes that I think are good, but overall I don't think it's Andrew Lloyd Webber's best music.
I don't think so either. I did find myself at a couple tunes going like, okay, I'm on board with this.
Yeah, definitely.
But this is my first time hearing most of the Cats tracks, and none of them were like, yeah.
No, I agree. So for me growing up, Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Yeah.
And there's some great tunes in that.
Yeah.
And then
everyone knows Phantom.
Of course, yeah, exactly.
And I'm not just talking about like dun 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 dun, but also like Music of the Night.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And then there's a couple great tunes from The Point of No Return,
right.
from Phantom.
Jesus Christ Superstar.
Jesus Christ, yeah. There's some great tunes from Jesus. So Cats, I don't know why this became like a phenomenon in the 80s.
I'm honestly puzzled.
I have a theory about this, if you'll excuse me for going on a rant.
Go ahead, yeah.
My theory is that when it comes to musicals, by nature of being a musical, your suspension of disbelief is more.
Uh-huh.
And when you sit in a theater and are part of the live experience, you enter into a kind of contract, this suspension of disbelief, but because it's live, you sort of are prepared to give the performer more in terms of leeway.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this a little earlier, but like when you go and see a live show, if there's a bum note, one or two, it's because it's live. You forgive your performer because you're there watching them live. There's a give and a take. And I think when you watch Cats, that give and take comes because we expect the spectacle.
Right.
You want to watch this spectacle. You want to see, this is awesome and big and grand. But you don't have that when you watch a movie. Not to the same extent, anyway.
Right. Because there's the idea that it's going to be polished.
Yeah, it should be polished. It should be perfect. And so when you watch Cats, there's no narrative. And we lose the spectacle, I think, a little bit because of the uncanny valley of the CG.
Right.
But also because the spectacle is not as grand when you just watch it on a screen.
Right. And that there's been effects, like that the image is being manipulated.
Yeah.
It's not people who are doing it before your eyes performing
exactly.
This
no
routine.
one is, like on the stage performing like jumping jacks on a trapeze wire or whatever.
Right, exactly.
I'm exaggerating, but when you watch Cirque du Soleil, that happens.
Right, exactly.
When you watch Cats, you see this fantastic choreography, you see the makeup, you see the costume department, and they go all out. And part of that is like, wow, like this is all done practical effects because it has to be.
Right, exactly.
In a movie, nothing has to be practical effects. Cats is sort of the case in point of that.
Yeah.
The stage was all practical effects.
Right.
The movie was none.
Right.
Or very little, except for the choreography, which I still maintain was excellent.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. Yeah, because I think if you're relying on, if the reason it works on stage is because of the way in which you can be a little bit more risky, I guess, with the choreography in terms of doing things that are a bit more dangerous. Because again, I've never seen it performed live, but I would imagine that's kind of what they would do with the stage. When you have it on film, you as the audience, you're not having that same reaction of like holding your breath of someone like just flying through the air and going, oh, are they going to land? And you know that it's a movie and that it's being edited and it's being manipulated essentially.
Yeah. And it should be, a movie should be polished.
Yeah.
But it means you lose your spectacle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So what I think movies often rely on, in particular, and particularly with Cats, is if you can't rely on the spectacle to keep your audience, as often is the case with movies, then you need to rely on the narrative.
Right.
Which we know movies lean heavily on their narrative, not on their spectacle. Otherwise, you run into sort of like an anthology, which can work really well on TV and in short films, but is more difficult on a full-length feature.
Right, yeah.
I mean, how many full-length features have you seen that are actually just anthologies?
There's a couple I can think of. One that's great called Wild Tales. Now they're thematically connected, but it's 4 or 5 short films, and they're all very they're completely
but they're
different.
still short films,
Right?
Like to me, Cats feels like an anthology with like Victoria acting as the audience.
Oh, I
she's
see
our
what you mean.
through line.
Yeah.
The only movie I can think of that is kind of works, and even then kind of, is Fantasia.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Where it's sort of like a series of stories that are kind of thematically connected.
Yeah, well, Wild Tales is like that.
Yeah.
Fantasia. There was another one. Oh, Le Plaisir, which is a film by Max Ophuls. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Can't remember what year it came out, but it was 3 stories that are thematically connected.
Yeah. So I think, and I think it's worth noting that we as audiences rely really heavily on narrative, particularly in today's day and age, and that's not always a good thing, but that doesn't excuse Cats for like attempting to have a narrative and failing miserably.
Yeah.
Like, I think there was an attempt at a narrative there.
Attempt, maybe? Yeah.
I mean,
it's a very loose attempt.
Out of all the movies we've watched in the 2 years of CineMasters, this is the movie with the least amount of narrative.
Certainly one of them, yeah.
Like,
It's
the only other one I can think of is
disconnected.
Temple of Doom, and this movie has less plot than Temple of Doom.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm trying to think of other movies that would... Nothing's coming to mind readily. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's basically... It's sort of a bunch of songs about different cats.
Yeah, what the fuck does gelical mean?
And...
It's a nonsense word.
Yeah. You'll have to ask T.S. Eliot, I guess. Apparently
that
he was
dude's
the one who...
dead, so...
Oh, right. Okay. You'll have to ask whoever's in charge of his estate.
Yeah. What did you think of Taylor Swift's song added?
I don't actually... Was that the song she wrote, the one that's when she's in it? Is that
No,
actually...
that song is about McCavity the cat.
Yeah, okay. So that was actually in the original musical.
That was in the... I'm
assuming.
almost positive.
Yeah. I would assume so. Yeah.
I think the one that Victoria sings about... All you ever wanted was to be wanted.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the one.
Oh, okay.
Taylor Swift
I actually don't know which one was the Taylor Swift one.
thought it was okay.
Well, she also wrote it with Andrew Lloyd Webber too,
Yeah.
so that's probably why it blended in. Because I think whatever it was, it obviously blended well enough that it didn't stick out to me.
But is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing because it fits and it doesn't draw too much attention to. It's like, oh, now it's a Taylor Swift song.
The real question is, did they just do that to win? To
get the
to
Golden
attempt to win
Globe
the Golden Globe for Best Original Song.
Probably, yeah. I don't know.
That to me feels a little bit gross. Not that there's anything wrong with the song, but it's like, that's your motivation.
Again, I don't have strong feelings one way or the other. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
All I know is her newest album is very good.
Yeah.
I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, but I really liked her new album.
Very chill. I enjoy it. It's not normally something that I would go to either, but it's just nice and chill. Yeah. Pitches.
Okay.
You want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I
do actually think I have a through line.
I'll go first because mine might be okay. Mine can't really. I said this before. Mine probably resembles something closer to like Watership Down than Cats.
Hey, I'm okay. Watership Down is dope.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say I was in no way trying to like how would I reimagine Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical as a musical. It's just I have a character who's a cat in London with other cats and started there. And that's pretty much where the resemblance ends. And I have kept some of the names. So Victoria is a cat who's basically, she's abandoned. She's left at the side of the road. She's struggling to survive. And she's basically taken in by this gang of cats. And what she finds out quickly is that the streets of London, there are basically these gangs of cats that get together, and then they have different territory. And so because she was basically left in the territory of this one gang of cats, she's being looked after them. However, there's one gang of cats that's like the big gang of cats. And what the gang that's looking after her says is like, okay, you can stay with us, but if you want to, you have to go to this other gang and you have to steal something from them. So Victoria goes and she attempts to do that, but she gets caught in the process. And they capture her and they're gonna kill her. But before they kill her, the Mistopheles character steps in and he takes pity on her and says, "No, don't do that." And Mistopheles is actually he's the next in line to take over this gang of cats, and his mother is Deuteronomy, who's the one that's actually in charge. And so Mistopheles says, "No, don't kill her," and he actually invites her to stay with them. And
so what you're telling me is this is Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Romeo, come
that's
on,
good. No, that was good.
It took me like a full 5 minutes to come up with that. Not actually, but
I appreciated it. Anyway, so she's staying with this other cat, this gang of cats. Anyway, meanwhile, one of the cats, McCavity, he's kind of like the scar in this group. He basically attempts to kill Deuteronomy and succeeds, but is able to do it in a way where he's able to blame it on Victoria and frame Victoria. And so basically Victoria is forced to escape. Now when she escapes, she actually escapes with the crown of Deuteronomy. Ooh. She goes back to this other gang and she's like, "Look, I stole something." So she's accepted back into this other gang. Now she's part of the gang and they actually get into she becomes one of their fighters, and they get into a bit of a scrap with the gang that she just fled from. And in this scrap, they're fighting with Mistopheles, and Mistopheles actually gets cornered at one point and gets injured badly. And Victoria is like, "Okay, now if you want to prove yourself, you have to kill him," but she's not able to do it. So Mistopheles is able to escape. But because she didn't kill Mistopheles, they're suspicious of her. And one of the cats is named Alonzo, and he doesn't trust her. Anyway, meanwhile, McCavity, he's basically, this is another thing I should have mentioned. Mistopheles actually thinks Victoria killed his mother. It's only McCavity that knows that she's really innocent. Anyway, McCavity gathers his forces together, and he launches a full-scale attack on the gang that Victoria is a part of. Anyway, as he basically defeats them, and in the battle, like Mistopheles corners Victoria, and they're gonna fight it off, and he's like, "Why did you kill my mother?" And she basically is like, she explains to him like, "No, this isn't what happened." And he believes her, and he ends up escaping with her and Alonzo, and they run off together. And from then on, they're kind of on the run. But McCavity's now basically like, he's just destroyed this other gang, and his territory is growing and growing. So then Victoria and Mistopheles, they basically end up acting as the broker of peace between other gangs. And it's kind of like, actually what I think it's more akin to is something like Black Panther, where at this point they go to like another group of cats and they basically get the forces up, and then they go back and they try to recapture. They basically try to overthrow McCavity. However, this time they succeed. However, even though they overthrow McCavity and Mistopheles is now restored to his place is the ruler. None of the people who are with him actually believe Victoria is innocent. They still think that she killed Deuteronomy.
Yep.
And so she has to be exiled. And so then she has to go on her way. And that's where it ends.
You would love your endings to be
My-
like ambiguously, but mostly not ambiguously terrible. Not terrible, just like darker, shades of gray.
This is seemed to be a trend with the last couple pitches.
Are you doing okay? Do you need
I'm
to talk
okay.
to someone? Yeah, I like that. Do you know the series of books called The Warriors?
This sounds familiar. Is this the one about the
cats?
Yeah.
That sounds very familiar. Like a lot of the concepts there, I was like, this.
I have
very
never
familiar.
read it, but yes, I know what you're
I've
talking about.
read the first one
Yeah.
or two. when
Is
I
it
was younger.
Kenneth Opel who wrote those?
No.
No.
No, that's Silverwing.
Okay, yeah, he wrote Silverwing.
But he
okay.
hasn't written any other, not as far as I know.
Yeah.
He hasn't
Okay.
written
So
any- the
okay.
Warriors were written by another author.
Oh, okay.
So about cats. He has another series as well called like The Travelers or something like that.
Right. Well,
which
he
is
also
about
did he
bears.
write Airborne as well?
No, that was Kenneth Opel.
Yeah. No, sorry, Kenneth Opel. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, Kenneth Opel wrote Airborne.
Yeah, no, I'm talking
right.
about this other author
Oh,
who wrote
okay.
The Warriors. He has this other series called The Travelers, something
Oh,
like that, which is
okay.
about bears.
Oh, okay.
I've never read that
Never
one,
read
but
that. Yeah.
I can't remember his name. Is it T.S. Eliot? No, I don't think so. Yeah. I like what you did with yours. Like you were basically like just like, okay, well, what actually do I have in this story that I can work with? But you basically like threw away any and all pretense of being a musical.
Yeah.
Like you were trying to find a narrative in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be done as a musical.
Yeah,
I
but
was
you-
just like, what would a story be?
Yeah. What would the story be?
Yeah. And I just thought, okay, it's a character who's trying to find a home.
Yeah.
And in the end, by like, what I was trying to do with it, I don't know if I quite succeeded, but she's trying to find a home, and no matter what she does, she's not able to do it, but she does have to at some point. Like she helps other people,
Yeah.
or other cats, and she helps them. She helps restore order essentially, but she's still
herself
she's
is
still
an
without a
outcast.
home.
Oh, that's very
Yeah.
interesting. That's I like that. I will say that just because I just thought of it, and you were much more animated talking about your version than watching the actual version. I've never seen Nate actually deflate at a movie, and I can't tell which was more funny when we hit the halfway point and you were like sitting sort of like with your neck forward in the chair, like I love this, like, or the first maybe 10 minutes where you had your head in your hands and you were like, is this really what we're gonna spend the next hour and a half to 2 hours watching?
There was a moment where I sort of it dawned on me what this was.
there was a moment where I made a joke and I just couldn't stop laughing because I realized like this is my life for the next 2 hours. And I do also want to mention, because I totally forgot to mention it, Grisabella always has gunk on her face.
Oh,
and it's
yes.
so distracting. Like it's so. I'm just like, can you like cats are supposed to be clean? Can you just like
That's true. Actually.
wipe your mouth?
Can you just like
on your
use
sleeve?
your tongue?
Like yeah, or instead of rubbing your snot juice on Judi Dench. Yeah, it's weird how they like rub each other.
Yeah.
It got a little. Every
Get a
time one of them would like
little-
rub against each other, I'd be like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
It is a like just
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll get into my pitch.
Cool.
It's weird because with this movie, it's like I have so many things that I want to say, but because there's not like any philosophical ideas or narrative through lines, there's nothing to connect them.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it really was to me when writing the pitch. It was you could go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Really.
Like so I'll start with mine.
Okay, go for it.
Mine is like, first off, I'm just gonna get this out of the way. Mine is animated.
Nice.
It's an animated movie
Nice.
because I just think having an anthropomorphized cat will work better if we're gonna animate it.
Okay. Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you're gonna do cats, you either have to go like CG the way they did with the Lion King, or you have to go like they're just dressed as cats.
Right.
Because what we just got was weird.
It was. Yeah. It
Because
was.
they're like cat-like enough that they rub against each other, but human-like enough that it's weird to watch them rub up against each other.
I guess one of the things is it was hard. It does seem like hard to justify doing it in that style because it did seem it seemed like a more cleaned up version of like people in cat costumes. Whereas if you had the technology, why not just do like actual cats? Yeah.
Or even some kind of like animated CG hybrid where they're like photorealistic, but they dance like people.
Right.
But do it with mocap.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is what they did for Lion King.
Yeah. But I would do it mocap, like where you have the motion capture, like do the kind of ballet or choreography, and then instead of like CGIing the fursuit weirdness over them and like pasting their faces on, you just do it like, okay, they're anthropomorphized cats.
Right.
Like, so it's animated, but it's 3D CG animated with mocap.
Right. Yeah.
I'm okay with that too. When I was originally thinking of my pitch, I was thinking of like a traditional 2D animation, almost like the musical Cats Don't Dance.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay.
But I wouldn't mind if they went the CG route. I just think you'd have to be like, okay, we're going with like photorealistic CG, but they're still anthropomorphized.
Oh, I like the idea of Cats Don't Dance,
Yeah.
taking it kind of like that approach.
Yeah, I also thought it was strange that they were like, oh, let's just have a bunch of random cameos from famous actors.
Right, yeah, it draws too much attention to... Yeah.
And like all the named characters are famous people, except for Victoria. Like Mr. Mistopheles was the only like non...
Yeah, I didn't recognize,
and Victoria. And then for all the other cast members who do most of the bulk work, I would say, like the lion's share of the singing and dancing is done by these non-actors, and they're just there.
Yeah.
It's like it feels a little wrong to me to be like, let's call James Corden in, let's call Rebel Wilson in.
Yeah, Ian McKellen.
Yeah. Why is Ian McKellen in this? Like, he does a fine job, I guess.
Yeah, I mean there was that moment that was pretty meta where he's like, oh,
yeah,
it's
when
not
he was like
the way it used to.
Like,
basically was like,
theater isn't the way it used to be, and you're sort of like, is he talking to us about this film?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, is this Andrew Lloyd Webber, or is this like Ian McKellen?
Yeah. Anyway, so animated, Victoria is introduced by being abandoned, and she's sad, but then all the cats sing to her about something called gelical cats, and she's like, what the fuck is a gelical cat?
Yeah, okay.
But hold on, I explained it.
Okay.
So she discovers that all cats are normal cats, but a gelical cat is chosen once a year and is given some magic and is given 9 lives.
Oh, okay.
Right? So that's where the legend of 9 lives comes from, because of these gelical cats. So immediately Victoria is like, yo, I want to go to this gelical ball where the gelical cat is chosen. So and so she's like, you know, here the Jellicle Ball is more like a talent show where these cats compete to be chosen by Deuteronomy to become the Jellicle cat. And she's like, oh, I want to compete. Like, I want to be seen by these people, because she's dealing with abandonment issues. So she's like, I want to be wanted. Right? So basically, like, various cats come out to the show and they attempt to prove to Deuteronomy that they're worth being chosen. So we have Deuteronomy have her like intro song, then we can have like Rum Tum Tugger, and they all have like different songs, basically the way we did in the movie, except they're strung together through the pretense of a talent show.
Oh, I see. Okay.
To prove that they should be chosen.
It's condensed a bit more.
Yeah.
That way. Yeah.
Well, then there's a through line too. It's like, why are we just doing these musical numbers one after each other?
Right.
It's like, okay, now we're doing these musical numbers because these are the cats who are trying to prove that they have what it takes to be chosen to be a Jellicle cat.
Right.
And also a Jellicle cat is clearly explained. They have magic.
Right.
And they have 9 lives.
Right. So you have stakes actually.
Yeah.
That you've put in there. Yeah.
So she wants to be wanted. She sees Grisabella, and Grisabella talks about how she was once beautiful and full of life, but now she's shunned by all the other cats. But we don't know why she's shunned. So meanwhile, at the same time, a cat named McCavity, he's already a Jellicle cat.
Okay.
But he is attempting to be chosen a second time by disguising himself. I wrote down that his name is Utavakam.
Okay.
Which is just McCavity rearranged.
Yeah.
And he wants to be chosen again so that he can have another 9 lives and pay off some of his debts. So like he's been trading his lives and whatnot. And he also has like magic because he's already Jellicle. So he wants to like stay immortal. He's used up a lot of his lives. So in order to tip the odds in his favor, he's using the magic that he has to basically catnap the other cats after they perform, right? So back to Victoria. Victoria is sad because she tries to do a song, but she's so young and not as talented as the other cats that are there. But Deuteronomy she said, no, you're still young. You have other years you can try. You can always try again. You can always get better when you're older. But if you like, you can come and watch the selection and show and see how it's done. And so Victoria's like, wow. And so she sits with Deuteronomy. So when all the other cats are done, Deuteronomy has to make her choice, but the only person that's left is McCavity. And she's like, well, I'm not going to pick McCavity. She sees right through his disguise and is like, I know who you are. I'm not going to do it. And so he like uses his magic to like threaten her and whatnot. I don't know. I haven't really figured it out. I literally wrote this, you know what I mean? Right after we watched it. So he threatens her. And then all the other cats are like, we have to get her back. And so they sing to Mephistopheles, and Mephistopheles is like, okay. And he like eventually magics her back with Victoria's help singing, right?
Oh, okay.
And Victoria realizes like, oh, you know, maybe I don't actually want this for me. Maybe I want this for somebody else. And she remembers Grisabella. And so she convinces Grisabella to sing now that they have Deuteronomy back. And Grisabella sings, and Deuteronomy then Deuteronomy selects Grisabella. She says, you're going to be the Gelical cat. And we hear Grisabella sing about how she was once loved by somebody who didn't, or she loved somebody who didn't love her back. And so she wants to become a Gelical cat so she can have the 9 lives and start over again. And the reason that she was basically banished is because it's heavily implied that McCavity like was the person that she was in love with who didn't love her back and spent all of her life trying to like do something for him instead of something for herself.
Okay.
Living for who she should have been and somebody who loved her. And so Deuteronomy says that's a noble cause. Like you should live and find love, right? But then Deuteronomy turns to Victoria and says, you will never be able to become a Gelical cat. And Victoria is first really, really sad, but then she says, you can't become a Gelical cat because you saw Grisabella for what she was. You're not selfish enough to become a Gelical cat. Instead, you will be the next person to select the Gelical cats.
Oh,
and so Deuteronomy uses up her ninth life to pass the magic on to Victoria, and then she passes away. And 1 year later, Victoria sings the song calling all the cats to come to the Gelical ball so she can choose.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's something.
Yeah.
I still wanted it to be a musical. Like I clearly was like, and this is where McCavity sings, and this is where Deuteronomy sings, and this is and during the talent show, you can have all this take place throughout the talent show, like behind the scenes, because then you have like Rum Tum Tugger can have his song, and they all still sing to Victoria. We, the audience, can watch this take place through Victoria, but instead of just having Victoria be the audience surrogate, she has stakes. Otherwise, she's just there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, because I mean, you can have a character who's sort of the surrogate for the audience, but that character does need to be, in order for that character to work, they have to be challenged as well.
There has to be something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just why. I mean, as talented as the actress is in both singing and in dancing, and I also think I will say, because I did notice this when they were singing the Taylor Swift written song, I was like, this is a wee bit off. Like her voice sounds a wee bit off. I think the reason for this, don't quote me on this, but I think the reason for this, as I recall, it's been a long time since I've done the research on this film, is that the song was literally given to the actress like the day of.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder how much of that actually was her.
Just didn't have time to
practice.
Right. Maybe
practice it all the way through, and she was just, pulling at straws to make something work, like as a scratch, or whatever. So
could be.
Yeah. But yeah, I really wanted to try and keep it as a musical, and sort of justify it being a musical, as opposed to just a series of songs one after another, instead of being like, no, we are going to like have a talent show to prove who can be a Gelical cat. And I stuck with the word because I was like, I still don't know what that word means, so I'm going to give it a meaning.
Yeah.
because I'm really angry that they're just like, a Jellicle cat can do that. And you're like, cool. And then Victoria at the end of the movie is like, well, how can I can't go? I'm not a Jellicle cat. You're not?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck does that mean? And then according to your brother who was watching the movie with us, he looked it up online to find out that the reason Victoria is not a Jellicle cat is because she's a kitten. Did you know she's a kitten?
I didn't know.
I didn't know that either.
No, exactly.
So much of this movie's
he had to read it on the internet.
Yeah, so much of this movie's narrative is left to the wayside.
Yeah.
And I bet you, because of the nature of being a musical, that I bet you the stage play is 3 hours with an intermission. 1.5 intermission, 1.5.
Yeah.
3 hours of that.
Ugh.
I never really had any...
I imagine the stage play is probably more interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
I've never had any urge to see
Cats is never one that was
Cats.
that big. Yeah, it was that I felt
I've seen
particularly
The Lion
strong
King.
about.
I've
Yeah.
seen Mamma Mia. I've seen The Producers. I've seen Hamilton, but only on Disney Plus.
Right, yeah.
And I've seen my fair share of like amateur productions of like the what's that one called? Oh crap. With Professor Frankfurter and Brad. I can't think of what it's called. The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Right.
Yeah. I've seen that one amateur, really, really well done. I've seen lots of amateur productions. I've been in a few amateur productions. But I don't know. I've never had any desire to see Cats.
No, Cats has never been. And even anyone who I've talked to who's a bit more familiar with musical history has told me that, well, someone suggested that Cats was actually never meant, like he wrote it not really with the intention that it would ever be taken seriously.
Who, Andrew Lloyd Webber or T.S. Eliot?
Or Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Because I have a feeling T.S. Eliot just wrote a bunch of poems for his kids or whatever.
Probably, yeah.
Right?
I'm just speculating. I really don't know too much about the origins of their version of Cats in either case.
I have a feeling that Andrew Lloyd Webber is a weird dude based on the fact that he wrote a musical called The Starlight Express and had people running around in roller skates pretending to be trains. Yeah. I if I had to guess, I would say that Andrew Lloyd Webber writes really awesome melodies like he did with the song Memories.
Right.
And he did with a lot of Phantom. Mm-hmm. And he just looks for places to put them and just picks really weird ideas conceptually.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Cats, the stage musical, has a plot. And I don't think it was ever supposed to. Like, I think it was just supposed to be like, it's about cats.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that's where this movie's downfall starts, is you can make a movie that doesn't have a plot, but you have to be careful about how you do it.
Yeah, so like a movie that I would say that doesn't have a plot that's excellent. Someone might contest me on this, but Dazed and Confused.
Okay.
I mean, it sort of has a plot, but it's really, really understated. But it's not about like anything happening. It's a very uneventful movie, but it's very engaging.
Yeah. Baraka.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go. Yeah.
It's just a movie about a visual experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very different kind of movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like, going back to Dazed and Confused, there's an element of, there's a dilemma the character's trying to sort. The character's trying to make a decision by the end of it, but it's kind of through these episodes that it's very much kind of slice of life in one sense.
Yeah.
So, and
slice of life can really, really work.
Yeah, exactly.
But even most of the slice of life I've seen is usually like there is some kind of low stakes, but some kind of dilemma or conflict in the episode that gets resolved quickly.
Exactly. Well, there is an undercurrent of some kind of emotional undercurrent that's going on, even if it isn't like in Good Slice of Life. It's not like it's completely naturalistic in the sense that they turn the camera on and they just sort of watch life happen.
Yeah.
There
are movies like that work as well.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of one. Nothing's coming to mind right away. I'll think of one later.
Yeah. But I don't know. I also really, I as far as I can tell, the whole thing with McCavity stealing the cats,
pretty
sure that was added in for the movie just to justify like having all the famous people on the boat together.
Probably, yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. That movie was a fever dream.
Yeah.
Like just a visual.
Chronicles of Midsummer. Midsummer Chronicles, that's the title. Now that's kind of more documentary, but that's very much slice of life. But that holds a pretty big piece, and it's got a spot in cinema history. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Back to Cats.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know. I feel like that movie was. There was a couple times where we were watching it where we were both like, "This is." I mean, meth is a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
Like catnip is that was such a strange movie, and I'm struggling so much to even just talk about it conceptually.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's so hard to even pick apart, because
in some ways that's kind of neat, where it's like, this is something you need to experience. Like if we think about it,
to experience it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like in order to talk about it, I think you sort of need the experience of it. But on the one hand, that's super neat. That's super deep. Where it's like, this is an experience that you need to have in order to understand. But on the other hand, it's also like,
that's what I'd say about Tenet.
Yeah,
Tenet's like that.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's like, don't for Cats. I mean,
yeah.
Because it's just like, this isn't worth your time. There's no intellectualness to it.
I think any attempt to make any sense of it is just grasping at straws. So what you're saying is
the point of this entire podcast, to try and repitch the movie, was pointless.
It was fun. It was enjoyable.
It was really interesting.
Yeah.
I think we came up with two very different ideas.
Definitely. Well, it's one of the things I like about doing this show is how different our pitches
always go. Yeah. But I don't know. I really don't have that much more to say about Cats.
I didn't really feel like I had anything to say in the beginning. I still like Tom Hooper. I still think there may have been an imposter who said his name was Tom Hooper, who said he would make this movie.
I wonder how much of this was because he made Les Mis and the studio was like, we'll pay you a bunch of money to make Cats.
Maybe.
There's no way that some of those artistic decisions were his idea.
I'd be shocked, because I mean, he seems to really know his, like, between King's Speech and Les Mis, I mean, those are just two exceptionally made movies.
I wonder how much of this was his decision. That's what I really wonder.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I have no idea.
I would know.
Tom Hooper, reach out, come on a guest episode of CineMasters and explain to us why Cats.
We won't even talk about Cats. We could talk about King's Speech.
We'll talk about anything else. Yeah.
I would just.
But also, I really want to know. Just that's going to be my sentence. I'm going to be like, Tom Hooper, thank you so much for joining us. Why Cats? And not even like why, comma, cats. Like, why Cats? Like, just literally, just why Cats? Why Cats? Yeah.
Well,
that's all I have to say about Cats. You?
That's about all I have to say about that.
Awesome. Where can people find you?
My website is www.nathanieldraper.com. That's NATHANAELDRAPER.
And you're on Letterboxd.
And I'm letterboxed at Draper Nate.
Yeah. You can find my band Robot Philosopher anywhere you listen to awesome music. You can also find out new episodes of This Is a Thing every other week on Thursdays, and every week we have new episodes of CineMasters Ultimate Timeline right here on the YouTube channel. Thanks so much for joining us for this movie? Question mark?
Yeah, this in person after months.
That never happens.
No.
Yeah.
And at midnight too.
Yeah, it's a late one for us.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next time right here on CineMasters.
Peace.
Peace.